Very, very recently, I was asked to share my thoughts on unconscious bias in performance appraisals. I kept thinking about this bias because I have experienced the bias so many times. Actually, I've come to the conclusion that all perceptions are biased perceptions. Bias means subjective perceptions. Subjective perceptions means the way you perceive is different from somebody else perceives. And what that somebody else perceives is different from another third person perceives. So all perceptions are dependent on the perceiver. So if you ask there what is an objective perception, there is nothing like an objective perception. The truth is what you see it and the way you see it. So all of us have unconscious biases. If you want to call them biases, you call them biases. I call them subjective perceptions. And there is no way in which subjectivity can be eliminated in our perceptions, and therefore there is no way in which it can be eliminated from performance appraisals. This is the conclusion I have come after working for the last 45 years in the field of performance appraisals. In fact, most of you know that we started the human resource development movement as an outcome of a review of the performance appraisal system in Larsen and Toubro in the year 1974. Both Uday Parikh and I had done it, and since then we were working on performance appraisals of many organizations. I'll give you a few illustrations from my own life. In 1969, early 69, I went to Delhi to work with the National Institute of Health Administration and Education. Naturally, I had to look for a house. And when I was searching for a rented house, I was told that it's not difficult for South Indians. In those days, I think all South Indians are called Madrasis. It's not difficult for a Madrasi to get a house on rent in Delhi. Whereas Punjabis are perceived as not easy to deal with, and therefore it's not easy to get a house on rent if you happen to be a Punjabi. Fortunately, you are a Madrasi, so therefore you can get it. And we, of course, got a very good house, a two-bedroom set in one of the upcoming posh areas of New Delhi at the time, east of Kailash, just opposite to Kailash colony, very closer to Greater Kailash. A few months later, I discovered that another person from another Madrasi, actually from one of the South Indian states, working in the Canadian embassy, took the house of a Punjabi on rent, and over a period of time claimed ownership on it. And he fought in the court because he lived there for long years and won the case. And the rumor was this Madrasi was actually able to usurp the house of the Punjabi. Now, what an interesting thing. The perception in Delhi was that Madrasis are easy to deal with, and you can give the house on rent, whereas the reality, at least in one case, was the same Madrasi actually took away the house of a Punjabi. Interesting. Now, I don't mean to say this is a common kind of a practice. I think any person can be a difficult tenant, any person can be a difficult landlord. So it does not necessarily depend upon whether you are a Madrasi or a Punjabi. Now this is a perception. Interestingly, when I came to Ahmedabad, when I joined the Indian Institute of Management at Ahmedabad, there was a big rush for campus houses. I couldn't get one of the houses there, so I had to naturally search for a rented accommodation. So while I was searching for rented accommodation, one of the doctoral students of IIM was kind enough to accommodate us for about a few weeks. And while we were in that house, we looked for another house, and we actually located a house in a nearby colony closer to IIM Ahmedabad. And then we fixed a particular date when we'll shift the luggage. And when we actually went with all our luggage in 2 to 3 carts, we found that the house which was given unto us on rent, and with the key and the lock and so on, were locked again by another lock. So we were very surprised because they a lock on another lock, and then we were trying to see what has happened. Meanwhile, some of the residents from the neighborhood came and that we're sorry, it is the society which has put another lock. This landlady had no right to give this house on rent to you. So using my knowledge that madrasis are easy to give the rent, I thought that in Ahmedabad also that is the case. So then I mentioned to them, I am from Andhra Pradesh. I'm a South Indian. I'm not a troublemaker. And I showed my wife, this is my wife, and then I have son. So don't worry about us. We wouldn't have any issue at all. This didn't seem to cut much ice with them. He said, "No, all that we have inquired about you, we know all about you. You may be a great person on earth, but we don't want to give you this particular house. And we will not allow this landlady to give this house to you." So I said, this is ridiculous. Then I said, okay, now this has not, Madrasi trick has not worked. Let me try the other one. That I'm working as a professor in IIM Ahmedabad. So immediately they said that we also found that out, and that's another reason why we don't want to give this house to you. I was startled. I was very surprised. I couldn't get that house. I had to take back all my luggage and return back to the place where I was staying. Later, when I inquired, I discovered that somebody else who was a staff member working in IIM Ahmedabad happened to live in that colony, and that particular person had given a lot of trouble to the colony people, and in fact he was involved in some things which resulted in, I think, even the police visiting that particular place, and therefore they decided that and that person happened to be an Andhra from Andhra Pradesh. So all those from Andhra are bad, and not only those from Andhra working in IIM are still worse. I suppose that is the kind of conclusion that they have come with. Now that is how the colony's unconscious bias, I think it has gotten into them, it's not verifiable, it is prejudice. This is what we call as one strike experience generates a negative memory, and the negative memory gets retained in your brain, and that keeps on working for quite some time. You make certain kind of assumptions, and you think that this is the way I think all people are, and you make generalizations. Now, these are, I've just given two illustrations, and I find that even now, very unconsciously, this particular kind of bias works. Perceptions are determined by pieces of information that you have, and the human being wants to put all these pieces of information together and comes to the conclusion that this is the whole. For example, this morning while I was walking, somebody met me on the place where I was walking and asked me, Professor Rao, it seems you're shifting to Bangalore. I said, I'm very surprised. Now, how do you say that? I'm not shifting to Bangalore. I've been here for a long time. He said, no, but I understand that you are, you have decided to sell your office. I said, no, I have not decided to sell my office. My office is a registered office in Ahmedabad. We are constantly functioning. And we have another office in Bangalore. And only a part of my office is a lecture room, which is not being used, and therefore I probably felt that if somebody is interested, uh, I could consider giving it on maybe selling it and so on. So this was very interesting that what I have said, that I am interested in making this particular play part available, has gone from mouth to mouth, and people have perceived a different kind of things and interpreted it as my shifting to Bangalore. This is not the first time people have asked me that I'm shifting to Bangalore. 2 decades ago, I remember when I resigned from IIM Ahmedabad after I got my 20-year-old medal uh, to be the honorary director of the Academy of HRD. A rumor was already set in motion that TV Rao is going to Hyderabad and he's shifting the academy to Hyderabad. All that happened was that we got a piece of land for Academy of HRD, and I had no intention of shifting. By the time we already appointed a full-time director, Dr. Sethumathan. I mean, these are all illustrations of how people perceive events that happen around them. And the gestalt works. They close the information by putting some pieces together. And this all happens unconsciously. This does not happen consciously. So that is why we call it unconscious bias. Now here I like to bring in a very interesting point I have learned from Jaggi Vasudev, Sadguru of Isha Foundation. If you attend the inner engineering course, one of the things that strikes you is what Sadhguru says: we are all the products of our memory. You are a product of your memory. Whatever you are today, whatever may be your age, whatever may be the background, you are the product of your memory. Your body is a product of your memory. All that you ate, all that you did with your body for last several years, I think results in the way you are. It results in all kinds of things: happiness, unhappiness, positivity, negativity, and so on. Same way, the kind of experiences you have had in your life, I think, add up, and it constitutes a memory, and your entire psyche, your mind is nothing but the product of your memory. Now, if you understand this, no two individuals are equal. Every individual has had different life in terms of whatever he or she ate or whatever he or she experienced. So my experiences are not the same as your experiences. The organizations where I worked is not the same as where you work. Or even if we both worked in the same organization, the kind of people I interacted, the way I perceived, the kind of habits I've had is not the same as yours. So that means no two individuals are equal or the same in terms of their perceptions. That means each one of us carry our unconscious bias with us. Every assessment that we make of other people, everything we perceive, uh, that is reality for us, and that reality is based on our own kind of experiences. Now, if you consider this, how can you expect uh, one individual who assesses a group of individuals using his own both the physical and mental memory and making his own judgments and putting that person on a 5-point scale or a 10-point scale or a 100-point scale, be compared to another person who has had different kind of memory, who has had different kind of experiences, who has had different kind of scales altogether, and is measuring uh, another person or the same person. And normally it is another person. In performance appraisals, my assessments are compared with my colleague's assessments, who are compared with another colleague of ours assessments. So the assessors are different, the assessees are different, our memories are different, and still what is common is that number. A 5-point scale is common. A 4 for me is not the same as 4 for my neighbor, and a 4 for my neighbor is not the same as 4 for another kind of a person. They can't even be equal. They are totally different. Therefore, my friends, in performance appraisals, all assessments are biases. They are all biased assessments. It is subjective kind of assessments. And it is futile to say that I will have objectivity in performance appraisals. I keep jocularly saying, even gods are subjective. Why are you trying to be better than God? Every god likes his or her own followers. All gods like their followers. If they are following Lord Vishnu, I think you are Vishnu's follower. Lord Shiva, you are Shiva's follower. He likes you. You are of Jesus Christ, then you are a Christ follower. Or you are of Allah, then you are Allah's follower. So it all depends upon the God you follow. All gods like those who follow them. And every religion says all people are made in the image of God, and we are truly made in the image of God, and therefore we are subjective. So what is wrong if our boss likes some people with whom he interacts and have had pleasant experiences? Don't you like those people with whom you have had pleasant experiences? And therefore we come down to the most important question now: what therefore should we do in terms of reducing biases in appraisals? I don't think there is any simple solution for this. How do you reduce your biases in performance appraisals? I think the most important thing is to accept that all appraisals are subjective. All appraisals are temporary. So if you feel about a particular individual in a particular way at this point of time, there is no guarantee that you will not feel differently tomorrow. Now, all that the other person who uh, perceives your assessment as not positive can do is to understand what makes you think more positively about him or her and behave in a way that could probably please you. That means it is very important to constantly exchange expectations, exchange feedback, have performance conversations, and use this to assess and never conclude assessment of a particular day as the final kind of an assessment. Assessment is continuous, people are changing, people can improve, and it is only when you take this larger view, I think people can bring out the best potential in them. This is where I like Sadhguru's Jagi Vasudev's contention that human is not a resource, human is a possibility. So if you treat human beings as possibilities, you are not likely to put them into a box and say, this is what I have assessed you, this is what you are. At best, you can say, this is how I have experienced you at this point of time. You may be different tomorrow, and I may also be different tomorrow because I might experience the same person, same event in a different way if my memory changes and things of that kind. So, what is required is a mutual appreciation for whatever one is able to accomplish and whatever one is able to contribute. Having listened to all this, you might ask the question, where does this leave me in terms of making my performance appraisals objective? I've always argued simple things. If you accept that performance appraisals, particularly managerial appraisals, are never going to be objective, I think all that you can do is make performance appraisals as exciting kind of things. So my first recommendation is drop the term appraisal. It's not for appraising performance. You are having a performance appraisal system. It is for managing performance. It is for improving performance. So the most important thing for all of us to understand is performance appraisals have to be abandoned as appraisals and have to be recast as performance improvement systems. PIS or performance management systems. I help you to manage your performance, you help me to manage my performance. We are mutually existing here to help each other to improve our performance. I can be an instrument in helping you to improve your performance because if you improve your performance, it is good for you, and I want you to be an instrument in improving my performance. If I improve my performance, it will be good for me. Even if the organization where I work does not recognize me, somebody else is likely to recognize me and pick me up. So, what is important for me is to perform well, which means I take charge of my performance. So, the most important thing I would recommend for those of you who want to bring objectivity in performance appraisals or performance management is to shift your focus to performance improvements and get people to own their performance. It is the performer who can improve. No boss or no junior can improve the performance of their bosses or their juniors. You can only improve your performance. Now, if you have to improve your performance, you should have multiple sources from where you can get inputs on how well you are doing. But more importantly, it is important for you to perform better, to acquire the knowledge, attitude, skills, etc. required to perform better, to get clarification about what others are expecting you to perform and use the clarifications. Now, this is possible only through performance conversations. So, it is very important to have mutual expectation sharing sessions, use KPAs, key performance areas, KPIs, key performance indicators, weightages. These are all tools for clarity. These are not ends in themselves. These are not multipliable. These are not additive. These are not subtractive. These are mechanisms to bring clarity and help each other to appreciate each other and to improve performance. So, performance dialogues, performance conversations, performance reviews, performance expectation sharing sessions, and at the end of it, if you want to use numbers, you should use them only to clarify. Having said all this, then you ask the question, should I therefore recognize and reward good performers? I said, sure, but don't do it once in a year. I should do it every time, every day, every moment. Whenever you find somebody has done a great job, I think you should be able to say, great job done. Why do you have to wait for a quarter or a month end or a day end to make a comment that you have done a good job. I think when you do such kind of things on the basis of whatever you have observed, it is likely to act to the unconscious bias in a positive way of every individual. It adds to the psyche, it builds experiences, it creates positiveness in people. So that is what is my recommendation for those of you who are interested in looking for eliminating subjectivity in performance appraisals. Never try to do that. It's subjectivity is a part of life. Appreciate subjectivity, discuss about it, dialogue about it, build positive subjectivity in managing our performance. Happy time, have a great time in your company and with your work, and enjoy whatever you are doing.